Everyone, welcome. Can everyone hear me okay? Can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay? Also, or not thumbs up like that, you can raise your hand right here. You can hear me okay, and then you can see the huge orange screen. Can you give me a show of hand and then... All right, we have a very quiet audience today. So just like any other webinars, we're just gonna give a couple more minutes for everyone to join in before we get started. Again, with the show of hands, I'm sure everyone's familiar with the raise hand function in Zoom, but yeah, so how many of you guys here are parents? Are there any parents in the room? No one. And then all of you guys are students? Okay, you guys are all students. How about, let's do, how many of you guys are class of 2023, graduating next year? Class of 2024? Okay, a few of you. How about class of 2025? Anyone? All right. Class of 2026. All right, wow, okay, so we have a crowd of class of 2024 to class of 2026, and I don't think that there's any parents in the room. And since we spent 3 minutes and it seems like you guys can hear me okay, you guys can also see me okay and the screen, so let's just get started. All right, welcome to Millie's Guide to SAT Success. My name is Jenna, and I'll be the host for today's session today. Before we get started, the first things first, message Millie. We have Millie as another host here in a private chat. If you are, or use the Q&A function, if you're interested in tutoring either group or one-on-one on SAT. And then also I'll answer all of your questions at the end of every section. So if you have questions, use the Q&A function. So because we have a lot of attendees for these webinars, we disable the regular chat for the public. So if you have questions, use the Q&A function and ask me those questions, and I'll make sure that we answer those questions for you. And then if we don't get a chance to answer, I'm trying to keep this session for about anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes today. So if I cannot answer any of your questions for whatever reason, then I'll make sure that we answer them to you via email or something like that. So do have those questions coming in through the Q&A. Also, yes, this session is recorded, and then it will be shared on our website, so you can check it out. So always, there's other recordings on our website as well, but you always want to kind of listen to the latest, the webinar recording or in real life, right? Because obviously there's changes in the test and all that fun stuff. Also, last but not least, follow us on Instagram for more university-related tips. Our handle is on the bottom of this page, but just for everybody's sake, let me show you. This is our Instagram. You come to our Instagram here, and then you'll be able to see, as you can see, we do university highlights as such, and UK universities. So it's not just related to US universities. We're a company that is dedicated to international school students around the world. So a lot of times students who come to the SAT sessions are more interested in the US, but as you can see, we have content about the UK university. There's a motivational quotes, and you'll also be able to see and learn about different types of degrees. And all of those contents are shared on our Instagram. And then by clicking the link here, you can access a lot more of the details, such as our blog posts, etc., etc. So do come check it out. So that would be the last PSA before the beginning of this session. All right. So, and then next one, since you guys said that there's no one who's a class of 2023, so this is not as urgent, but for those of you who are studying the SAT during the summer, or summer just got started sort of 2 weeks ago, right? So if you're thinking about studying during the summer and then get your SAT out of the way, or try to see how you would be performing, the next upcoming test, the 2022 to 2023 SAT registration is officially open. And then the next upcoming test is on August 27th. And the registration deadline is July 29th. So for those of you, again, thinking about using the summer more proactively and the study, and then, do the test, do the exam in the beginning of school year, as opposed to doing it during the semester, I highly recommend you guys to check out this date. And we are already aware that some of the test centers are already closed, because obviously, like, August is typically the most popular test date, because it's right after the summer break. So here, as you can see, there are 6 test dates totally available for the international students. So international locations, this is different than the US location. I'm going to go into this more detail in the later section, but yeah, just keep in mind that for the August 27th test, you will have to register by July 29th, which is in about 2 weeks. Okay, right. So next section is, let's do a bit of a warm up, and then let's see how much you guys understand SAT. And I'm gonna give you some of the true or false questions, and you can answer them the way that you think is the right answer for this question. Let's do this one. So SAT is going digital in 2023. Has anyone heard of this? Raise your hand if you've heard of this, that SAT is going digital, okay? All right, yeah, some of you. So then I'm sure you guys are, some of you are like a bit worried, or what does that mean to me? Do I need to take the digital, etc.? So we're gonna address that now. So SAT is going digital in 2023. This means I can choose to take paper versus digital SAT. True or false? You guys can use actually the Q&A function, and then just like type in your answer. True or false? Shelly says false. Okay, so that's correct, Shelly. So from 2023, the change is the following. Unless the answer here is a false, yeah, and then the explanation here is that what we put down here is unless you're willing to travel to the US. What does that mean? So according to College Board, they will make the transition going from paper to digital for all overseas international test center. And then for the US test centers, they're gonna make the change in March of 2024. And once it's switched, the only option you have is digital. So let's go check it out. We were just here, right? We were just here, as you can see. So the next 3 tests up until December of 2022, it's on paper. And then after that, March of 2023, this is when it goes digital. Here it explains that, right? And then as college, and most of our students are not coming from the US anyways, hence we're focusing on this slide. And then if any of you are actually based out of US, that means that for you guys, the test will change in 2024. That's the change. All right. Next myth. Let's look at the next myth. As a class of 2024, so actually it applies to all of you, like as a class of 2024 and below, right? I should not be studying for the SAT since it's changing. True or false? Also, you can use the Q&A function. What would be the answer? Since you are a class of 2024, I should not be studying for the SAT since it's changing. What do you guys think? Anyone? Any brave volunteer? All right, yeah. Pranshav said it's false. And yes, so the answer is false. Okay, So why false? Let's look at some of the reasons why. SAT score is valid for 2 years. So which means if you guys, some of you guys who are very ready, class of 2024, and like, I don't know, you've been like taking some Khan Academy courses, or generally speaking, you are planning on studying and planning on getting it over with during the first half of your junior year, right? Then SAT score is valid for 2 years, which means you can take the SAT in 2022 and get it over with, right? We saw the dates until December. So technically speaking, there are still 6 months left. And then 6 months, if you put in a lot of effort, is good enough of a time and you want to reach their like the potential in the test, right? And then the second point that I want to highlight is that the change is in the testing format, not in test content. What you study now will also prepare for you will also prepare you for the new digital test. All right, what do we mean by this? Let's go look at some of the things and let's check out what's changing and what's staying, right? So here is the, again, official SAT website, right? This official SAT website shows what's changing and what's not changing. Millie is sharing these links in the chat room. So if you want to go check it out yourself, this is where you can do those yourself as well. So the first section of this page, it has the video. So obviously you can watch the video from the official College Board. And then here, the first part, it talks about what is changing. We talked about this in the question number 1, right? So international SAT, it's going into the digital format in spring of 2023. And then for the US schools, it's going into the digital format in spring of 2024, right? And then here are the things that's staying the same. What does it say? The first thing that say is that measures knowledge and skills that matter most. This shows that they are keeping what we talked about. Format is changing, doesn't mean that the content is changing, right? They're still gonna be testing math and English, and they're still gonna be about the same level as the previous test. The one thing that's also important is the score is also going to stay 1600. So 800 and 800. And why is this important, right? Maybe you guys are a bit too young to remember this, but there were times in the SAT, the history of SAT, there were actually when the test was total of 2400. There were this time that they had 2 English sections and 1 math section. So 2 English sections made up 1600, so 800, 800, and then math section was 800 as well. So as you can see, this is obviously a bigger change than something keeping as a 1600 and just a format of going from paper to digital, right? Because the composition of the test, the importance of math in this case, right now it's 1-to-1 importance. Versus when it was 2400, that means English is 2 times more important than math. And I'm going to be very, very generalizing, but a lot of the internationally oriented students coming from the international, they're typically again, very general, is better at math, right? So then it's disadvantage for a lot of the international students. So that's not the case here. And you are still going to be taking the test at the test center. So it's not like some of those tests that, you know, during the pandemics, you were just like taking it at home and then go to some website like proctor.com or something, or doing it yourself. It is digital, but you're going to be going into the test center and using the computer to take the test. So yeah, so those are the changes, right? And then those are what's staying the same and what is changing. So you're taking it on the laptop and then shorter. So the test is now 2 hours instead of 3 hours. We're going to cover that a little bit. But for now, this session, we're going to focus on later. When we talk about it, we're going to focus on the test structure of the current SAT test. Why? Because, you know, you guys are not coming here. Generally speaking, you guys are not coming here if you're thinking about taking the test 2 years down the road. A lot of students who are thinking about taking the test within like 1 month to 6 months come to our session to listen to it, right? So I'm going to focus on those students today. However, you will learn here that the test is going from 3 hours total to 2 hours. and talks about fast score delivery. It's obvious, right? One goes from like circling things on the paper to now doing it online. Obviously, it's going to take less time for them to grade and check, if it's valid. And then calculator is allowed in all section. Again, this is something we're going to talk about it later, but right now, currently there's 2 math sections and 1 math section. You can use the calculator, and the other section you cannot use the calculator. However, in the new SAT, because it's just like 1 hour of each section, like math 1 hour, English 1 hour, that 1 hour of math section, you'll be able to use the calculator in the entire section as well. So these are the changes that you saw. And then, so what did we want to talk about it here? Again, I think that, we made it pretty clear that the change is the format and not in the content. And some of our students actually have taken the pilot test. So we have at Millie, we have access to about 10,000 students around the world. We have our newsletter. Also, that's another one. If you want to join our newsletter, I'm sure some of you came here through the newsletter, but join our newsletter. Millie will be sharing a link. You can sign up with your email and you'll be getting all the news and then the updates from us. But some of our students actually have taken the pilot test. What College Board does is whenever you have these changes, they let some of the students be the guinea pig, right? And then they've also mentioned that the content hasn't changed much. Math side, definitely not. And then English side, the text got shorter for the text that you have to read, but still like the difficulties and etc. it was on the same page. And so it was also good to hear from our own students as well. All right, so now I've been monologuing for about 15 minutes. Put in any questions. If you have any questions, use the Q&A function. And I see that there's some new students just joined. So yeah, if you have any questions, send them to me in the Q&A chat. Myth number 3. All right, so this is another very popular and or contentious point, right? So test optional. You guys are all familiar. During the pandemics, a lot of the things became like test optional, right? So myth number 3, test optional means I can get into any of my dream schools without taking the test. Is this true or false? All right, Pranshab said false. Yes. So let's look at the answer for this. Okay, what's happening? All right, myth number 3 is mostly false. Yes, unfortunately, this is a myth. This is not true. And then I'll explain this why. And then again, I know for many of you, you guys may think that, Jenna, why are you even asking this question? It's so obvious. It doesn't mean that it's, you can get into any dream school. But you guys would have no idea how many times we get asked this question by our students and parents, okay? Like during the pandemics, and now too, like come to us and be like, oh, we heard that University of California is now test blind. Do we still need to take the test? I can apply to UC Berkeley, right? Like, why do we need to do this question? And then they say XYZ school is test optional. Is that okay to apply? These questions, we get it all the time, okay? And then I'll explain a little bit more on this. So we said that it's mostly false, right? And then, so the first explanation is like, so when you think about the definition of dream schools, right? The dream school by definition is something out of their league, right? And then this is something that applies to not just the schools, right? If it's a dream car, like no one talks about like 20-year-old, used car as a dream car, right? By definition, when you talk about dream car, dream something, it's like dream house. It's like a bit out of your reach or a lot out of your reach, right? So that's already the concept, and then where your dream school typically sits, whoever you are, whatever your dream school is, right? And then test optional doesn't mean that a student who would have gotten 1150 on the test will get into a 1500 average test score school. Again, go back to this, the example again, UC, University of California, even at this moment is test blind, right? And then UC Berkeley, let's say it's their average score is anywhere in the 1400, in the high 1400 for the students who get in. Now, only because UC became test blind in the past 2 years doesn't mean that a student who would have gotten 1100 would get into a 1450 school all of a sudden, right? Obvious things, but then even though they're not looking at your test grades, there's a lot of other components to your application. The school can tell what level you are, right? Whether that would be your GPA, your essays, your recommendation letter, your extracurricular activities. It's not that difficult, like to kind of like it kind of like disperses in this all areas. Like another good example is like if you think about someone like who's like a top performer in your school, think about the smartest friend that you have, right? The smartest friend, that someone who would get 1500 on the SAT, does he or she writes bad essays? Probably not. Does he or she have bad GPA? Probably not. Does he or she not gonna get good recommendation letter? Probably not, right? So you think about it in the contextual manner, doesn't mean that test optional says that you can get into any of your dream schools, right? And then also another point, this is a very important point that I want to mention. And then unfortunately, this is the truth, right? Like I'm going to tell you a bit of a tough truth. There's a reason why you are shying away from the test. What do I mean by that? Students who would have gotten a school that has average 1500, all the Ivy League schools, the students who would have gotten into those schools, there's no reason for them to shy away from taking the test. It's only those who are not as ready for the school or for that grade wants to piggyback on this test optional idea of it, and then they want to stay away. Now, last point here is so pandemic is pretty much over, luckily, all around the world, and many schools are reinstating test requirement. Reinstating meaning bringing back the test, right? Starting with MIT. So have a look at the MIT website. Not that you guys all want to go to MIT. Testing requirement. We have updated our testing requirement for 2022-2023 application cycle. The requirements are blah, blah, blah. We require the SAT or the SAT for both prospective first year and transfer student. Read more about how we came to this decision. Now, Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech, standardized test. All first-year applicants seeking admissions in 2022 and beyond must submit the results of SAT and ACT. So different universities are still at different requirements at this point. Like I said, UCs are test blind. Most schools are test optional or test required at this point, and more schools are reinstating the test requirements. So, check out your dream school's requirements. But, if our advice and how we think that this is going to go as a company is, SAT is going to stay. There's been a talk about getting rid of SAT for the past 20, 30, as long as SAT has been around, but it hasn't been gone. It hasn't gone. And all the tests, there's always the talks about getting rid of the standardized anything, and then it just doesn't go away. So to be on the safe side, especially for those of you who are class of 2024, 5, 6, I think it's prudent if you can take the test and then prepare. That's the best bet for you. All right, next one, last myth. SAT is only for the US universities. True or false? Use the Q&A chat for those of you who just joined, and you can answer these questions. Anyone? SAT is only for the US universities. True or false? Shelly says true. The answer is, let me show you the answer if it comes up. Okay. The answer is false. Yes, unfortunately, Shelley, the answer is false. Many of the popular global universities take SAT as either their primary or supplemental testing requirements. What does this mean? Let's go look at this. Our SAT requirement. So this research is done in May of 2021, but this is still relevant. And in this document, you'll be able to see that. So what we've done here is we looked at top 120 global universities by QS ranking, and then we looked at the schools that require or recommend SAT on their website as part of the application requirements. So let's look at, as you can see, there's many different countries and universities require or recommend, right? We use this term, kind of interchangeably. Let's look at some of the universities. So Italy, Bocconi University, typically it's popular university for those who want to study economics or international business. So if you go to the Bocconi's website, you'll be able to see, okay, I could have, right? Here, SAT official ACT or SAT score. A SAT reasoning test score of 1350 or ACT composition of 29 are highly recommended, right? So it's a university in Italy, and this is like one of their signature program, which is called WBB, and then it has quite a high requirements, right? So that's one that you saw here, Bocconi University, this one. Let's look at the University of Hong Kong. And if you go to University of Hong Kong, it would take you to the official website again. And then you will see up here in this chart, it's like 2017 and onward. And it says SAT, ACT, AP. Here are the score. That's the score that's considered competitive. The information below refers to school leaving examination score that are considered competitive. Yeah. So again, this is more on the recommendation side, right? But anyway, so you would be able to see those tests, and yeah, SAT is very widely used all around the world. And then some countries, I don't know, didn't ask today like where you guys are from, but some countries you can just use the SAT as part of your standardized university requirements for your own home country. So for instance, if you're in UAE, a lot of the schools, UAE, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, you can use the GAT requirements with the SAT math section or whatnot. And also students, we were told that Pakistani and also the Indian universities, you can also use the SAT score for applying as a local or local as well. And yeah, a lot of the European universities, typically it's more on the business school side, and then you can use the SAT score, and then they will waiver your the testing requirements when you apply. So the usage of SAT vary, and then even on UCAS, right? So if you guys are applying to UK universities, even on UCAS, there's a section that you can, supplemental data section, you can put the SAT score as a data point for them to consider. So yeah, I think that Millie just shared, if you want to get a copy of your own, this one, right? You can just click the last link that Millie shared. It says Global University SAT Requirement Report, and then it will take you to a form like this, and then you put in your information, and then you will get a copy of that report instantly in your email. This copy will be sent out to you, so you can have a copy of it yourself. Okay. All right. So now here's a little bit about me. Not much, it's boring. If you want to follow me on Instagram, that's my Instagram. I am a founder and CEO of Millie, and Millie is a company dedicated to international school students around the world. So you guys, and we guide students for their, the dream. Currently, we work with students in 29 countries and 155 schools around the world. What that means is many students are doing, tutoring and college counseling on SAT, ACT, IB, AP, A-level, these are the curriculums that we manage. And also some students are working with their college application, the essays, the working on their internship projects, etc., etc. So we started this company because I come from an international background, and both my co-founders come from international school background. I did AP myself, but we are familiar with AP, IB, all sort of the international curricula. Just because, we're here. So how many of you guys are in the IB curriculum? Raise your hand. All right, and how many of you guys are in like A-level system? How about AP or American curriculum? Yeah. Okay, so many are IB students here, or IB to B. That's like a normal. Typically, our where we have about 50% of our students coming from the IB background. How about anyone from like a local program, their own local curriculum? All right, and as a bit more about my background, not only I'm running a company, but I went to Cornell for undergrad, and I did master's degree at Northwestern, and I did my MBA at Columbia Business School and London Business School. So I have a fair share of experience taking the test myself as well. So hopefully I've been there, I hear you. Yeah, so hang in there, guys. So we just did the first section, true or false, and now we're gonna talk about what is SAT. This is going to be a quick section, so I still want to keep it to 45 minutes today. So let's dive in. So what is SAT? And again, I think that one thing I want to mention, unless it has been clear, this session is for a novice and the beginner student. And then typically our sessions are more geared towards the beginner level students, obviously. And then for those of you who are already at like 700 on the SAT, and then we talked about the changes that's happening on the digital side. So you can exit out of this webinar because then there won't be much that's new to you guys. I'm gonna cover the fundamentals, and obviously that's the purpose of the webinars, right? So what is SAT? SAT is a standardized test that's very widely used in college admissions in the United States and numerous global universities. We saw that earlier. More than 2 million students in class of 2019 took the test, and there are 5 to 7 test dates available annually. And why is this number important? That's because typically there's a less test dates available for international location compared to US testing location. So it is important that you guys go to the international test registration as opposed to the US part of it. And then SAT 1 test English and math. So there used to be this test called SAT 2. So if you ask your older siblings whatnot, they're going to talk about the SAT 2, and then people still talk about SAT 2, but that's completely gone now. It's just the SAT. So SAT, SAT 1, they're the same thing, and it covers English and math. SAT is paper-based as opposed to ACT, which is computer-based. However, we talked about it. This is changing in 2023 and 2024. Let's come here. And then, so let's see, you see that there's a 6 test dates here for, this is international SAT dates and deadlines, right? And it's kind of hard from here to go to the US side, but let's try to go to US test. Let's see. Register now. If I can I do this? I probably can. All right, I need to sign up. But if you actually go to the registration of the not international testing, the US testing page, you'll be able to see that there's about 8, 9 test dates now. Used to be, 5 to 7. 5 is the international, and then 7 is the US location. Now I think because of the changes of the test, there's going to be 6 test dates for the international, and from what I remember, US, there will be like 8 test dates. So it's super important that you guys come to this page as opposed to going to the US page, okay? All right, next section. The perfect score of SAT is 1600. And scoring is done on a relative scale following the normal distribution. What does this mean? All right, let's do another kind of quick poll using the Q&A chat. using the Q&A chat, oh, I see that there was one question by Pranshav. I will answer that question later as well. But I'm sure what you guys heard about people saying like XXX is a good score. What do you think is a good score on the SAT? Have you guys heard people saying like, oh, like 1300 is a good score for you need X score? All right, Pranshav said 1550. Okay, anyone else? Someone, teacher or your siblings or parents saying just some number and say like you need to have this score? Or let's do it in another way. Has anyone heard of someone saying like you need, you need 1500 and above to get into an Ivy League school? Raise your hand if you've heard someone saying something like this. Or let's say something like, like you need 1400 to get into, I don't know, like NYU or, to get into, those are typically like the numbers people would throw at you. So I'm assuming, yeah, I see some hands. So thank you. And then, and Pranshav said 1550. Okay. And then a lot of the reason that I asked this question is like a lot of times people say these things and then no one ever can explain why that's the good score or why you need that score to get into that school, right? Like just like have you ever wondered, it's like why is that? Like why is 1500 a good score? Why is this a good score? So I'll explain that to you. So first of all, another thing that people don't really know is that there's no way you can get a 0 on the SAT. Most people know the perfect score of the SAT is 1600, but pretty much nobody knows that the minimum score on the SAT you can get is 400. Like I'm sure many of you never heard of this. That's because the test is what's called, it's done on the relative, like normal distribution scale, and with the 500 as the average, and then the highest you can get, like 3 standard deviations above. Some of you who has done this math in math class, is the highest score, and then 3 standard deviation below, like 200, so 500, 400, 300, 200 is the minimum score you can get. All right, I'll put that into a context of what that means. So another thing that I can mention here is that there's no such thing as one question equals X points. Students and parents come to us and be like, oh, okay, so like, is there like, if I get one question wrong, is it like, usually, is it about 10 points? Is it about 15 points? There's no such thing. That's because, again, scoring is done on a relative scale. Look at this chart here. And how you can interpret this chart is, let's say that there's 1,000 students who's taken the test. And then what College Board does is they're going to grade every single one of those 1,000 students. And then after that, they're going to put the students in the order of the ones who got the least questions wrong, all the way down to the ones who got the most questions wrong. So you have this like order, right? And then they're going to cut the students and then put them into these buckets. You can see the percentage in this chart as the amount of students fitting into that grade group. So if you look at this chart from 400 to 600, so this is in one subject. So if you time it to, right, 800 to 1200, what's the percentage within here? It's almost 70%, right? So what does that mean? If 1,000 students take the test, there's about 700 students who's gonna get anywhere from 800 to 1200. And that's by design. They designed it this way so that the majority of the students would fit in the middle. Now, then let's see why people say that X is a good score, right? So let's look at first 1400. A lot of times you may hear 1400 is a good score. Let's see, then 1400 is 700 times 2, right? So you look at here, and in this chart, it says top 2% of the student. It's 20 students out of 1,000 students who have taken the test. If you are top 2%, would you say that's a pretty good performance? Would you say that's pretty good? I think so. I would say so, right? So that's why people say 1400 is a good score. So now let's look at Pranshav. 1550 is a very high score. I mean, we haven't really heard of like anyone saying like a specifically, like typically people say more like 1500, 1510, or some people anything after that point, it's like, you can say 1570 is a good score. Like a lot of people say those things. So let's look at like 1500 as a example. So if you put the 1500 as 750, so it'll be around here, right? So what that means is you're at about top 1% performer. If it's you're a top 1% performer, would you say it's good enough? Yeah, it's academically very good. You're 1 out of 100, right? So when people say 1500 or 1550, whatever the number is, that you need X number to get into an Ivy League school. Why is that? Because to get into an Ivy League school, should you be top 1% performing? Yeah, I would think so, right? But does that mean that if you are in that score range, if you're a top 1% performer, are you going to get into an Ivy League school? No, right? Because if 1 out of every 100 students gets into an Ivy League school, Ivy League schools will be too full, right? And at that point, what matters more is your extracurriculars and other things. However, in terms of the standardized test itself, it's a good enough of a score for you to look at. All right, so at this point, I'm gonna answer Pranshab's question. Pranshab asked how much is the weighted average, like weight of a SAT if I'm applying to MIT? Okay, so good question. So I'm gonna answer these questions. So what Pranshab mentioned is there's different components of the application process. How important is it for MIT? And how important it is for the SAT. So this is a bit beyond our topic for today, but I'll just mention it. So US university, and this is very general. My answer is always a general answer. In the US application side, there's 5 things that are almost equally important. And then some students are very good at one area, and then that would be the deciding factor. Some students are more well-rounded, and then you will be able to tell yourself, or like, looking at other students and what case it is for them. So these 5 things are, number 1 is the in-school grade, your GPA, your predicted grade. Number 2 is standardized tests. So this is your SATs, ACTs, whatever in the world. And then your extracurricular activity, your essays, and your recommendation letter. So in any general setting, you can think of all these 5 things as 20% each of the importance, right? However, there are some students who are like really good at like, math, whatnot, and then get the Olympiad and then wins chess championship. So that's extracurricular. If that's like your strength, that could play up more than, someone could be like an actor, right? Like that could play up more, but that's a specific case. What else? Some students are very good at in-school grades, right? You could get like IB 44, and then you are not good at standardized tests. Maybe you may not want to apply, and then you want to apply to test optional schools. So that's also another case. But typically speaking, these all 5 are like pretty neutral for most of the students. So I would say how you can think about for not just MIT, but US university-wise, all these 5 things are sort of equally important. So that would put you, anywhere from SAT being important, like 20%. Hope that makes sense. So yeah. And Pranshab, can you give me a thumbs up or the raise hands if that makes sense? Yeah. All right. Thank you. All right. So the last section now is a couple pro tips. And anyone else who want to ask questions, use the Q&A chat. This is the time to ask me questions, okay? Because this is the last section. So here's tip number 1. Tip number 1 is when you're first getting started, focus on the subject that you are good at. Until your score gets about 1200, 1250, focusing on your strength area will give you a quicker boost. What does this mean? If you look at the case below, let's just say that you guys, in this case, you're starting at 1,000, right? The global average is about a little over 1,000 typically. And let's just say that you're starting at 1,000. Scenario 1 is that you're very good at English, and then you have limited time. All of us have limited time, right? Let's say you have 60 hours to study during the entire summer, and then you decided to spend most of those hours just on English. What happens? You like English, and then you get a hang of it. and that you see yourself improving a bit and you're excited, you want to study more, it's kind of fun. And during the process, what the heck, why not? Let's do a bit of a math section as well. So you will improve by having this kind of strategy. And then by the end, you have 1250 in this case, right? Because your English improved. Now, the exact same student decided to study math because he or she is not good at math. This is typically what you're told to do at school, right? You're not good at biology, you got to study biology. So you took this approach for that exact same 60 hours. And what happens? You don't want to study, you're not motivated, things don't make sense. And I'm just like, this is like a chore and you just don't want to do it. And you're not motivated. What happened? At the end, you're going to have a less of a boost. And then you studied the exact same amount of time, and then you will get a less results. Does that make sense? I think this is a bit counterintuitive to think about it, but first strategy is focusing on the subject that you're good at. And then once you get to why is it 1250, you get to the subject that you're good at about 700. Even if you're very good, 700 to 800 is pretty difficult. So when you get to that point, then you move on to the next subject so that you can up that score as well. There's only so much you can go, right? If you do 800 on one subject, the other subject is 500, the maximum you can get is 1300, which is closer to this 1250 idea, right? Then you need to go on that other subject anyways, right? But until then, it's easier to focus on the subject you're good at. Second tip is know your section breakdown. So this is a current test up until December, right? Section, and you would be surprised when you go take the test that how many students don't know these section structure and then come to the test. And many even top students don't even know coming to the first test. And this is huge to understand. So first is a section 1 and 2 make up English, and these are the ones that make up your 800 points. And then section 3 and 4 are math sections, and that also make up your next 800 points, right? And then in terms of the score, right, section 1 actually make up 400 points, and then section 2 make up 400 points. And then the reading section, it's more of your literature. So again, if you're in the AP system, this is more like English literature, and then section 2 is more English language, versus if you're in an IB system, section 1 is English A, language A, and then section 2 is language B. Okay, think of it this way. And then for the math sections, it's not like section 3 is 400, section 4 is 400 points. It's more like combine these two sections, and then in total number of questions become your 800 points. So what that means, out of these 58 questions total, like how you perform is what decides your 800 points. So just by looking at the number of questions, I would just say that section 3 is about 1/3 of your math grade, and then section 4 is about 2/3 of your math grade. Okay, and we said earlier that section 4 is with calculator, and then section 3 is without calculator. So section 4, so here's a pro tip now. In section 4, you need a calculator. Does that mean that you need to use calculator for every single question? The answer is a no. And this is a big mistake that some students, I myself included, make. It is that because it's a calculator section, you feel obliged. You feel like, is this a trick question? Like, is it too easy? Like, should I be using this calculator to double check my answer? You may be doing this, and then because of that, you may be losing time for the questions that you don't need to use your calculator. Generally speaking, if you are a high-performing student in math, I would say that there's about 10 questions you may want to use calculator, but the rest of the questions you can solve without the calculator. It is also possible to do pretty much all questions without the calculator. It would, like, what requires calculator would be like a couple questions. Again, this depends on how you are in math, but the point here is don't feel like you need to use the calculator for every single question. So that's the point here. So know this. And then also you have the time per question column. And keep this in mind. So why does this matter? When you're practicing, right? So this is a number of questions, number of minutes gone, given, right? So you just like divided that by the number of questions. If you are spending, let's say, more than 3 minutes in one question in math, you're definitely going to run out of time, because each question you have this 1.25 minutes, 1.45 minutes given to you, right? So obviously there are some questions you're going to solve in 30 seconds. There's some question you're going to solve in 2 minutes. But when you're holding on to a question for more than 3 minutes, then you should know that you will run out of time. What should you do? You should just move on from this question, do the other questions. When you solve all the questions and you have time left, come back to the question, right? Because you're going to be penalized for not solving all the questions in this manner. So I think here I embedded a test paper to see like if I'm explaining this correctly, but we don't have time, so we're going to just pass on to this. Last one is the review the SAT score use policy for each college. Okay, so there's this thing called super scoring. Some of you may have heard of it. Raise your hand if you've heard of super scoring. This is a bit of a pro topic. It's okay if you haven't heard of it. Okay, so seems like, no one has heard of this. So super scoring means that it's this like crazy thing that you can combine the highest score from each section of multiple exam. It's very unusual for any other types of exam. So basically, majority of the schools, I would say about 80% or more of the schools use this super scoring policy. What that means is, look at the example here. You've taken the SAT twice, and these are your scores. And then for the schools that are super score policy, then your final score is like, what's the higher English score here? This one. What's the higher math score here? This one. Your final score for the SAT becomes 1300, as opposed to being 1100 or 1250. So this is very important to check. And why? Because because if it's your school that where you want to go to. And also, this is also the reason that we mentioned to the students that you want to start preparing early. If you are starting in October of your senior year and you only have one chance to take the test in December, you obviously cannot take advantage of super scoring, right? Because you have one test. And so if you start early and you can prepare early, you can take advantage of this super scoring policy by taking the test twice, right? And we also generally, we as in Millie as a company, we advise the students to be done with their SAT by end of their junior year, so that your senior year will be so busy with whatever you're doing, IB or AP and application. So we want everyone to be done by their junior year. And then that's more so the reason why you want to plan ahead a little bit more. All right, so that's everything for today's content. So here now we're going to talk about some of the resources. We're going to talk about our tutoring courses as well as the free full diagnostic test that we host. So the first one, during the summer, now you're maybe motivated, maybe you're a bit more scared now after listening to webinar. So we have SAT prep courses that you can sign up. So there's two types that you can sign up, and one is the group tutoring. So we have a group tutoring courses. Our group tutoring courses are 3 to 6 students. And then you guys will be all around the world. We have our online platform where everything, the session notes, the recording, all of them, homework, everything will be recorded there. It starts and it's the duration. The next one coming up is August 8th to the 19th, and it's 2 weeks. So it's every day. It's our summer special. So it would be Monday through Friday at these times. You can see your own time zone where you are. And then this is USD $990 for 15 hours of classes, 10 sessions, and then the diagnostic test. If you want to do one-on-one tutoring, obviously because it's one-on-one, you can do it anytime. And every 4-week session, you can choose to do twice a week or 3 times a week. The big benefit here is it's a very flexible schedule. Some students, you want to study at midnight, doesn't matter. We can make it happen. And let's say, a lot of our students, next 2 weeks you're in LA time zone, and then the next 2 weeks you're in Hong Kong time zone. the following weeks you're in the UK time zone, no problem. We can, work with your schedule because it's one-on-one. And then for the pricing wise, it would be what you see below. So obviously one-on-one, it's more expensive. So twice a week is about 2,000, and then 3 times a week is about 3,000. All right. And then if you go to the website, here's where you can sign up to our courses. And if you have questions, just, let us know, and then we'll answer more questions. You can come to our website and sign up here. And then it will be, you can choose the sessions, and then it will ask you some questions about you. And then here you can choose whatever. This one is just a bit weird. So you can just choose this one. And then once you put it on the cart, it's just like any other e-commerce. You just like sign up, sign out, and then we will contact you and then match your mentor, and you get started with your SAT. Next one. Okay, has anyone here taken our SAT diagnostic test? Raise your hand. No one. Okay, so we do, Millie, we do our virtual monthly free SAT diagnostic test. Then, and the next one is coming up on August 13th, Saturday, August 13th. So if you wanna see how you do, and then just see, like if you're ready, like how daunting it is, then sign up to our test. You can sign up by scanning this QR code here, or Millie will be sharing it, already shared it in the chat. Just click that link, and then it will take you to a page like this, and then you just like put in this information, and then you will get the instructions and everything about 3-4 days before the test. First, you will get the confirmation email, and then the other things will be sent out maybe 3 days before the test. So here, anyone is welcome to join. It's free. However, I have one ask for you guys. The one ask is sign up only if you're gonna show up and take the test. We've previously had cases, oftentimes these tests are signed up by 200 plus students, and we have to create a wait list because we cannot accommodate, as that many students every single time. So we've had like maximum sign up of more than 500 students a month as well. And sometimes it's just like 10 students. It depends on what time of the year it is. But we had times that we had to put students in a wait list. And then if you guys sign up and don't attend, it's just not it's not fair for the students who want to take the test. So if you're signing up now, put this on your calendar. It's going to be August 13th at 9 a.m. Qatar, Saudi, the Gulf time zone. And then if you're in UAE, it's 10 a.m. Hong Kong, that area, 2 p.m. So put that on your calendar. Europe, 8 a.m., UK, 7 a.m., right? So block your 3 hours of calendar and show up, and the rest we will take care of it. So that's everything, guys. And hopefully you guys learned a couple of things. And could you just like with a show of hands so that I know that if you found this session helpful and learned a new thing, could you raise your hand? All right, great. So it looks like at least all of you guys learned a few things from this session. So it was definitely nice seeing you guys here. And if you have, hopefully we'll see you in other future sessions or SAT diagnostic tests. So have a great rest of the day. And you know how to reach us, which is either through our Instagram, or you can email us, go to our website, and also can message and email us. Yeah, thank you guys. Bye.